I think one of the biggest reasons that relationships struggle isn't because people stop loving each other. It's because we unknowingly ask our partner to heal wounds they didn't create. That's an impossible job. No matter how much somebody loves you, they cannot go back and rewrite your childhood and your history. They cannot become the parent you needed. They cannot erase years of rejection, inconsistency, emotional neglect, or criticism. And when we expect them to, we slowly begin turning love into pressure instead of connection. If you've ever found yourself needing constant reassurance, feeling hurt when your partner doesn't validate you in the way that you hoped, if you're wondering why just one small disagreement suddenly makes you question the entire relationship, or maybe feeling like no matter how much your partner loves you, it never quite feels like enough, then this video is for you. Because if you don't understand what's happening beneath the surface, then you're going to spend years of believing your relationship is the problem, when in reality, your nervous system is asking your partner to solve pain that began long before they ever met you. And eventually, your partner feels like nothing they do is enough. You feel chronically disappointed, and both of you begin feeling lonely inside the same relationship. So by the end of this video, you're going to understand why we unconsciously look to our partners to meet our emotional needs and needs that began in childhood, and why this creates such a distance instead of closeness, and how you can begin building the kind of emotional security that allows your relationship to become a place of connection instead of emotional rescue. So a client that I was working with once said something to me that I think about all the time. She looked at me through her tears and she was saying, Jen, why doesn't my husband ever make me feel secure? And she wasn't asking because he was abusive. She didn't think he was cheating. He wasn't a jerk. She wasn't asking because he was emotionally unavailable to her at all. He was doing a lot of those things right. He told her he loved her every day. He showed up for her. He gave her affection. He came right home after work. He was excited about spending time with her every day. He reassured her over and over again. But every time he forgot to text, and every time he seemed a little distracted, and every time he needed a little space after an argument, her body reacted as if the entire relationship was falling apart. And she would ask him, are we okay? Do you still love me? Do you still want me? Are you upset with me? Did I do something wrong? What did I do wrong? And eventually her husband looked at her and said something that broke kind of both their hearts. He said, I don't know how to convince you that I love you anymore. And that sentence changed the direction of our work together. Because the question was never, how do we get him to reassure her more? He was already doing that. The question became, why does reassurance never last? And that's a very different question. So once we answered that together, then everything began to change. So, hi, I'm Jenn Pinkerton. I'm a psychotherapist and connection expert. I help people understand the psychology behind why they love the way they do so that they can stop repeating painful relationship patterns and start creating healthier, more emotionally connected relationships. In my last video, we talked about how your childhood can teach your nervous system what love feels like. And today, we're going to take that to the next step. Because once you understand your relationship blueprint, which I've talked about, the next question becomes, how do I stop expecting my partner to give me what I didn't receive growing up? So today I'm going to show you why we unknowingly place that really big burden and responsibility on our partners and why it creates such pressure instead of intimacy, and how to recognize when your childhood wounds are showing up inside of all your adult relationships. And then most importantly, what it actually looks like to begin creating emotional safety from the inside out. So let's start with one of the biggest misconceptions that I hear in my office every single week. This first one is going to be about your partner was never meant to become your emotional parent. So one of these hard truths that I help clients understand is this. Your partner can absolutely participate in your healing. They were never designed to become responsible for it. And that's a really important distinction to make because healthy relationships are incredibly healing. Their emotionally safe relationships help repair attachment wounds. And being consistently loved in a beautiful way can absolutely reshape your entire nervous system over time. But that's very different from expecting your partner to carry that burden, to constantly prove your worth, to convince you that you're lovable, to calm every fear or to erase every insecurity. That's just simply not their job. And when we ask our partner to carry that responsibility, we're asking them to do something that no human being can ever sustain. So eventually they're going to begin feeling like they're feeling, not because they aren't loving, but because they're trying to fill a wound that only grows deeper the more we ask another person to fill it. So I often tell clients that relationships are designed to support each other. They're supposed to support healing, but they're not designed to replace it. And that's why reassurance feels so good to us, but only for a little while, because reassurance isn't ever the problem. It's that we're trying to use reassurance to heal something that reassurance was never designed to heal. And the real question isn't, why doesn't my partner reassure me enough, basically? It's a deeper question. And that is, why does reassurance disappear so quickly once I receive it? That's the question that changes everything. So before we go any further, I want to ask you something. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what is my relationship actually struggling with? Most people can tell me they're arguing more. Most people can say that they're feeling really disconnected from each other, or they're walking on eggshells. They're not having sex. They're feeling lonely. But they can't always identify what's happening underneath all of those symptoms. And that's exactly why I created the Pinkerton Relational Health Index. This is the PRHI, and it's a free relationship assessment. It's a quiz that helps you identify the hidden patterns that are shaping your relationship, including all of this talk that I'm giving you about emotional safety, communication, conflict, trust, friendship, intimacy, attachment, and just a lot more. Because awareness is always going to be the first step towards transformation. Because you can't change what you can't see. So if you're curious about your own relationship blueprint, then click the link below and take the PRHI. Now let's get back to today's conversation. So lesson 2, I want to talk about how we don't want our partner. We want the feeling we hope they'll give us. So I want you to think about the last time you felt really upset with your partner. Maybe they forgot to text you or call you. Maybe they seemed distracted or just not interested. And maybe they weren't as affectionate as they usually are. They could have chosen work instead of spending time with you. They could have just simply not responded the way that you had hoped. So now here's my question. What did you actually want from them? Most people will say, I wanted them to choose me, pick me, prioritize me. I want them to understand me. I want them to reassure me. I wanted them to make me feel important. But if we just slow down a little bit, those aren't actually the deepest needs here at all. Those are strategies. The deeper need usually sounds more like this. I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to feel secure. I wanted to know that I wasn't going to be abandoned. And those are completely different conversations because those are about core attachment wounds. And now we're no longer talking about your partner. We're talking about your nervous system. And one of the biggest shifts that people make in therapy is realizing this. We don't actually chase people. We chase emotional experiences. We chase the feeling of finally being enough, finally being chosen, finally being seen, finally feeling safe. problem is if your nervous system never learned those experiences and you never got them growing up, then your partner can create them for a moment for you, but they can't permanently install them inside. And that is why reassurance feels so unbelievably good to us and it disappears so quickly. Because reassurance isn't landing on an empty page. It's landing on an old blueprint. And old blueprints don't change because someone says, I love you. They change because your nervous system, it has repeated experiences of this new emotional safety over time. So that's why I tell clients something that I think surprises them often, which is your partner can give you reassurance, but only your nervous system can learn to receive it. So think about that. Two people can hear exactly the same words, I love you. And one person feels so deeply comforted and feel good. But the other person might immediately think, but do you really? Same words, different blueprint. Your partner isn't responsible for making you feel worthy. They're responsible for being trustworthy. Those are two completely different jobs. So the third lesson here, stop looking at your partner and start listening to your nervous system. So another mistake that people make is believing that every emotional reaction is about their partner. Sometimes it is, but oftentimes your partner is just contributing to their pain, because sometimes they can be really emotionally available and sometimes they can be inconsistent and maybe they're also avoiding accountability. Okay, but I'm not really talking about that situation. I'm talking about the moment when your emotional reaction is so much bigger than what actually happened. It is disproportionate and you know it. And maybe your partner is saying, wait, I'm exhausted tonight. And somehow your body hears, they don't want me. They don't want me anymore. They don't need me. You know, maybe they need a night with friends, but your body hears, they are pulling away from me. They might abandon me. And maybe they seem quiet after work, but your body hears, I've done something wrong. What's going on? I'm being hypervigilant, reading the room. But you see what happened in all those? The partner spoke one sentence, but your nervous system wrote an entire story in your head, an entire story in your body. And that story isn't about today. It is about yesterday. And one of the questions I ask my clients is, what story did your nervous system just create? Because your nervous system doesn't just react to events, it reacts to meaning. And if your childhood taught you that distance meant abandonment, you are going to naturally interpret distance through that lens. If inconsistency meant rejection, then you're going to become highly adept and sensitive and watching for inconsistency. If silence usually became before criticism, then silence itself is threatening. So your partner may not even realize that they're triggering anything at all because they aren't creating the wound. They're simply brushing against it. And that's why healing requires curiosity. So instead of immediately asking, what's wrong with my partner? Try asking, what is my nervous system afraid that is about to happen? And that question is going to change things for you because now you're no longer reacting automatically. You're becoming curious. And that's what I call the power in the pause. It is the space between the trigger and the reaction, the space where healing can actually happen. Because here's the truth. You cannot control every trigger, but you absolutely can learn to respond differently. And you have to slow down and pause. And every time you do, you're going to teach your nervous system something brand new. Your nervous system doesn't just remember your past. It predicts your future. And healing is teaching it that the prediction is no longer true. So if we stop asking our partner to become responsible for our emotional security, how do we actually begin creating it ourselves? That's what we're going to talk about next. So fourth lesson, emotional security is something you build, not something your partner gives you. So if you've been listening to this thinking, okay, all right, Jen, I understand why I do this, fine. But how do I actually stop? I want you to know something. This isn't about becoming emotionally independent. When people think that, I don't want you walking away thinking, I should never need my partner. No, that's not it at all. That's not healthy either. We're wired for connection. We're supposed to want to need connection. And we all do need reassurance. We need comfort. We need to know that we're loved. And healthy relationships absolutely provide those things. The goal isn't to stop needing your partner. The goal is to stop making your partner solely responsible for your emotional stability. And there is a very big difference between those. So think of emotional security like building the foundation of a house. Your partner is going to help strengthen that foundation, but they don't become the entire foundation. Because what happens when your entire sense of security depends on another person? Every disagreement feels catastrophic. Every delayed text feels personal. Every moment of distance feels like pain, like abandonment. And your emotional world rises and falls based on someone else's behavior. That is absolutely exhausting for you. And it's exhausting for the other person. So one of the healthiest shifts that you can make is learning to become an active participant in your own life, in your own regulation. And when you notice yourself becoming anxious, pause immediately. So instead of reaching for your partner, pause, become curious. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? What story am I telling myself? What old wound might be getting in the way and getting activated here? What do I actually need right now? Because sometimes you're going to still need your partner, okay? That's fine. But instead of saying, you need to make me feel better, you can say, I'm feeling really vulnerable right now. I'm trying to figure that out. Would you mind sitting with me for just a minute? And asking them to give you 60 seconds. Do you see the difference? One's inviting connection. The other places responsibility and burden. And healthy relationships invite each other into healing. They don't hand over healing to each other as a responsibility or a job. And one of the things I tell couples all the time is this: comfort is a gift, regulation is a skill, and the healthier your relationship becomes with yourself, then the healthier your relationship will become with your partner. I worked with a woman who used to panic anytime her husband went on a business trip, and she would call him repeatedly. She would check his location repeatedly. She would become angry if he didn't answer immediately. You know, she never thought her anxiety meant that she loved him deeply. Well, actually, take that back. She did think it loved him deeply, but she eventually realized that all of these trips, they reminded her of her nervous system, basically feeling left alone. And it was like emotionally when she was a little girl. And she knew that. She could place that connection. But she just kept saying, how can I get him to reassure me more? And the change is, how do I reassure the scared part of me that's showing up right now? And that changed everything. Because her husband didn't become less loving. She just became more emotionally secure. And because of that, their relationship became so much stronger than it had ever been. The goal isn't to need your partner less. The goal is to become secure enough that love feels like connection, not survival. So the fifth lesson, healing happens when you stop looking backwards for today's answers. So a really beautiful thing about the nervous system is that it can learn. That means that the lessons you learned as a child don't have to become the lessons that are going to define the rest of your life. Healing isn't forgetting your past. Healing isn't pretending that your childhood didn't matter. And healing isn't becoming someone who never, gets triggered. And it's not about the blame game, okay? Healing is instead recognizing when your past is trying to write the story of your present. So every time you will pause, power in the pause, taking that power back before reacting, you are teaching your nervous system something new. And every time you communicate your needs instead of expecting your partner to magically read your mind, then you're teaching your nervous system something also new. And every time you allow yourself to receive healthy love, instead of questioning it, then you are teaching your nervous system something new. So this is why healing just isn't one big breakthrough. It's thousands of small moments of awareness, small moments of self-reflection, small moments of courage. And these moments are choosing differently. And eventually those moments become your new normal. And your nervous system slowly begins to realize, I am no longer living in the relationship that hurt me. I'm now living in this relationship. And that realization changes everything. Because now you're responding to today's partner, not yesterday's pain. And that's emotional maturity. And that's where secure attachment, the holy grail, begins. Your partner cannot rewrite your childhood, but together you can write a very different future. So before I finish, I'm going to quickly recap what we talked about today. You learned that we often look to our partner to give us all the love, validation, approval, and emotional safety that we didn't receive growing up. You learned that all these healthy relationships absolutely must support healing, but they were never meant to be responsible. They're never designed to become the everything for healing, and definitely not to heal our childhood wounds. You also learned that reassurance isn't the problem, that the deeper question is why reassurance doesn't last. You also discovered how your nervous system creates stories based on old experiences, and why becoming curious about those stories is one of the most powerful steps towards healing. And then finally, you learned that emotional security isn't something your partner gives you. It's something you intentionally build within yourself, while also allowing your partner to maybe walk beside you. So if today's video resonated with you and you're ready to stop repeating painful relationship patterns and start building the kind of relationship that your nervous system no longer has to survive, I would love to help. I have a relationship blueprint intensive, and I work with individuals and couples to uncover the unconscious patterns that are driving their relationships. We work on healing attachment wounds, creating emotional safety, staying connected during conflict, and building the kind of connection that you've always wanted. So if you're interested in working with me in that way, you're going to find more information in the description below. So also, don't stop here, because now that you understand why you're going to look to your partner for basically all your emotional security, then the next question becomes, why do I feel abandoned, rejected, or completely panicked when someone pulls away, even in a small way? Maybe they take longer than usual to call back. Maybe they seem distracted after work. Maybe they need space after an argument. Logically, you know that this doesn't necessarily mean that they're leaving, but your body is reacting as if your relationship is in danger. So in this next video, I'm going to explain what's happening inside your nervous system. We're going to talk about why these seemingly small moments trigger such really big emotional reactions, and how you're going to begin responding from your healthiest self instead of your deepest wounds. So click on this next video here, and I will see you there.